Welcome back to the deep dive. You're here, I think, because you want knowledge distilled, right? You want to bypass the noise, get straight to the insights.
Mhm.
But today, we're not just talking about information overload. We're tackling something maybe even more pervasive: emotional saturation.
Yeah.
If you feel constantly pinged, drained, maybe just, overwhelmed by all the stuff coming at you, internal and external, well, this deep dive is probably for you.
It really is the modern condition, isn't it? We're just swimming in data, and as a result, we're swimming in unnecessary emotional noise, too.
Exactly.
So our mission today, looking at these sources, is to unpack this discipline called emotional minimalism. It sounds maybe a bit stark, but the core idea is powerful.
Okay.
Cutting through the fluff to get to this. Learning to consciously filter out the emotional static, that might just be the most powerful step towards living clearly and with focus.
I like that clarity. And it's important, isn't it, to say up front, this isn't about suppressing the big necessary feelings like grief or joy or even justified anger.
Absolutely not. It's about efficiency.
Right, efficiency. The source material calls it the art of reducing unnecessary emotional burden to create space for what truly matters. Like an internal decluttering project, maybe, for your mind.
That's a great way to put it. An internal declutter. And, to really get the solution, we first have to understand the problem. What's the actual cost of all this noise?
Okay, let's start there then. If emotional minimalism is the cure, what's the disease? What's the tangible cost of just letting that constant emotional noise run wild? Because honestly, for a lot of us, feeling stressed just feels like the price of admission for working hard, you know?
That's a huge misconception, and the sources really hit this hard. The cost isn't just some vague stress, it's specific. They say emotional clutter actively breeds anxiety, distraction, and that feeling of chronic fatigue.
Fatigue, yeah. I know you mentioned an analogy in your notes.
The,
Something about a computer.
yeah, the RAM analogy. Think of your emotional bandwidth like your computer's RAM, its working memory. If you've got 10 unnecessary programs running you're still worrying about that passive-aggressive email from Tuesday, or irritated about how slow the checkout line was yesterday, maybe stressed because you saw someone's perfect vacation pics.
Right, all those little things.
All those little things are background processes eating up critical capacity. So you feel wiped out physically, but the root cause is cognitive and emotional. Your RAM is just constantly spinning on irrelevant stuff.
Leaving no room for the big tasks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No capacity left for the high-level thinking, the productive work you actually need to do.
That really makes the fatigue concrete. It's not that you lack energy, it's where the energy's going. It's being wasted.
Mhm.
So the result is we end up kind of watching our own lives happen, just reacting to the next thing that pops up.
Precisely. When our emotions are pulling us every which way, we lose sight of any intentional path. We become, as the sources put it, reactive rather than proactive, just constantly playing defense against our own feelings instead of driving the action.
And that's just the ultimate inefficiency, isn't it? Playing defense all the time means you can't be strategic.
You got it.
So the core goal here has to be shifting that energy, getting away from that constant knee-jerk reaction and towards, well, intentional living,
Yeah.
purposeful action.
That is the transition we're aiming for.
Huh.
But this brings us to maybe the biggest misunderstanding people have about this idea. We have to clarify the difference between this filtering we're talking about and just plain old emotional suppression.
Yeah, this is where I think people get tripped up. They hear minimalism, they think stoic, emotionless, gotta push everything down.
Right.
But isn't ignoring irritation or trying to bury sadness, isn't that still suppression? How do you tell the difference when you're actually feeling it?
That's a really necessary question. Emotional minimalism is absolutely not suppression. Suppression is denial. It's pretending the feeling isn't there,
Okay.
which, usually means it just festers and comes back later, often stronger. Filtering, or conscious emotional filtering, is totally different. It's about awareness first and then curation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Can you give us a real-world example? Say, I'm stuck in a massive traffic jam. Predictable. And I feel that wave of just like instant road rage starting to bubble up.
Classic scenario.
If I suppress it, I just kind of clench my jaw, maybe grip the wheel harder, pretend I'm fine.
Yeah, white-knuckling it.
So how does filtering work in that exact moment, that high irritation moment?
Okay, so in that moment, filtering means, first, you recognize the feeling, you notice it.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, feeling really angry and impatient right now.
Just naming it.
Naming it. But then, and this is crucial, you immediately assess its utility.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, is this anger necessary? Is it giving me useful information? Can it help me change this situation?
And in a traffic jam? Probably not.
Exactly. The jam is external. You can't change it. So the anger gets categorized as, well, unnecessary noise, useless data for this moment.
Oh, okay. So filtering is notice it, check if it's useful, and if it's not, you consciously choose to let it dissipate. You don't feed it, you don't amplify it internally.
You got it.
Whereas suppression is pushing it down, but you're still carrying the weight of it. Filtering is like dropping the weight because you realize it wasn't yours to carry in the first place.
Beautifully put, yes.
Yeah.
It's about achieving a kind of emotional independence, detaching your actions, your immediate state of being from every single little emotional ping, especially the unproductive ones.
So you're choosing.
You're actively choosing which feelings warrant your engagement and which ones you can just observe as they drift by. That deliberate curation, that's the bedrock of emotional resilience.
Okay, so if intentionality and curation are the goals, the next big question is practical. How do we actually do this? How do we stop just knowing the theory and start, like, physically changing our emotional habits? What's the roadmap here for building that independence?
Yeah, the sources give us a pretty practical toolkit, and it actually starts with managing our environment, setting up some guardrails, you could say, to support the internal work.
Okay, guardrails. Lay out those first steps for us.
First, you absolutely have to identify your emotional triggers. And this isn't just the obvious stuff like, my boss annoys me.
Right.
It means getting almost forensic about it.
Right.
Really distinguishing between your internal triggers or maybe self-critical thoughts, feelings of not being good enough, and the external ones,
Yeah.
specific people, times of day, certain news feeds.
So you need a map, a precise map of what pushes your buttons, what sends you into overwhelm.
Exactly. You can't manage what you don't measure, right?
Makes sense. You can't filter the noise if you don't know what the noise is.
Okay, so once we know the triggers, what's the next layer of defense?
Boundaries. Setting boundaries is non-negotiable according to these sources.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't clearly define what's acceptable input and what's draining, then the outside world is just going to constantly invade your emotional space.
So this means, like, digital boundaries, too.
Mm-hmm.
Turning off notifications,
Mm-hmm.
limiting doom scrolling. Definitely digital boundaries. Right. Turning off alerts, being conscious about news consumption, especially stuff designed to generate outrage, but also relational boundaries. Learning to say no, politely but firmly, to requests or commitments that you know will just wipe you out emotionally.
Okay, so it's kind of like a digital detox, but for your soul.
Yeah.
You're pruning your emotional friends list and limiting exposure to toxic input, whether that's a person or, like you said, a Twitter feed.
Absolutely. And that leads to the third step.
Yeah.
Actively limiting exposure to those toxic influences. The sources are clear. This isn't about judging others. It's about emotional self-preservation.
Purely functional.
Purely functional. If an activity or a relationship or even a certain type of media consistently leaves you feeling drained, reactive, defensive, then it's an unnecessary emotional burden, and it needs to be minimized.
Okay, that covers the external toolkit. Identification, boundaries, limitation. Let's shift inward. This feels like where mindfulness comes in as the core practice, right?
It really is the foundation for that internal curation we talked about. The specific job of mindfulness here is practicing observing feelings without attachment.
Without attachment, what does that look like?
It's like developing your inner observer,
Mm-hmm.
metacognition.
Mm-hmm.
So when that wave of irritation hits, going back to the traffic jam, you internally say something like, noticing a wave of irritation. Okay, it's present.
But you don't grab onto it.
You don't grab it. You don't feed it by judging yourself for feeling it. And crucially, you don't let it automatically dictate your next action, like laying on the horn. You just treat it like passing weather, passing data.
And connecting back to the environment for a second, the sources link this internal calm to our physical space, too. They mention needing to declutter your environment regularly and having grounding activities. How does tidying my desk help me filter my emotions?
It sounds maybe disconnected, but internal chaos often mirrors external mess and vice versa. A calm, organized physical space actually helps lower the sort of ambient noise level in your nervous system. And grounding activities, whether that's, a regular walk outside, dedicated time for a focused hobby, even just a simple routine like reading before bed, they act like anchors.
Anchor.
Yeah, they give you predictable low stimulus moments that allow that emotional filtering system to kind of reset and recalibrate.
Okay. So to keep this all working together, the organized outside, the observed inside, What are the specific daily habits? What's in the toolkit for maintenance?
For sustaining this resilience long term, yeah, two tools are highly recommended for daily consistency: journaling and meditation.
Dick's classic.
They're classics for a reason. Journaling works like an emotional sorting process. You get the jumbled thoughts out onto the page instead of just letting them bounce around inside your head.
Discharge them.
Exactly. And meditation, especially focusing on the breath, literally trains your brain to resist automatically latching onto every passing thought and feeling. These aren't just like nice self-care things. They're actual training sessions for your emotional filter. Disciplined practice.
Okay, we've covered the problem, the crucial difference between filtering and suppression, and this pretty comprehensive toolkit, both external and internal. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk payoff. What's the actual ROI for someone listening? If they commit to this, identifying triggers, setting boundaries, doing the journaling, meditating, what changes for them? Professionally, personally, in their decisions.
The benefits described are really tangible and honestly quite transformative. When you successfully filter out that unnecessary emotional noise, the first major impact is a dramatic increase in clarity. Mental clarity.
Not just feeling calmer, but thinking clearer.
Yes, it's not passive peace, it's active mental performance enhancement. And that increased clarity translates directly into much better decision-making power. Well, when your emotional bandwidth isn't constantly tied up in low-level drama or anxieties, your higher-level brain functions, your executive functions are fully available, free for complex problem-solving, strategic thinking, creative solutions.
So you get your processing power back.
You get it all back.
Yeah.
The ultimate payoff is described as this blend of inner peace combined with optimized performance.
That's a powerful combination. Clarity, better decisions, that unlocks a lot of potential. I wonder, though, is there a risk here? You know, highly driven people sometimes mistake intensity and stress for productivity. Could someone mistakenly minimize emotions they actually need? Like the intensity for peak performance or empathy for leading a team?
That's a fair point, and the sources are careful to address it. The emphasis is always on unnecessary emotion.
Okay.
It's clarified that necessary emotional intensity, like, say, righteous anger driving you to fix an injustice, or the deep empathy you need to truly connect with and lead people, that stuff isn't just preserved, it's often amplified.
Amplified. How?
Because your energy is no longer being diluted by all the trivial worries and reactions. By filtering the static, you actually make more room for the powerful, necessary signals to come through clearly.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about becoming numb, it's about becoming more discerning, sharper.
Precisely.
So the goal isn't just, surviving the day without overwhelm. It's actually about optimizing your day by expanding your mental space and building real, robust emotional resilience. It's that shift from feeling constantly exhausted to having sustained, directed energy.
Absolutely. And maybe the final context here is to see emotional minimalism as a long-term transformative practice. It's not a fad, not a one-time cleanse. It's an ongoing commitment to maintenance.
Like tending a garden.
Exactly like tending a garden. And the sources really stress the approach. Start small, stay consistent. That steady effort is what unlocks, as they put it, your highest potential by freeing up all that trapped mental power.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think the core insight really is that filtering emotional clutter isn't about avoiding your feelings at all. It's about being incredibly intentional with them. Being precise with your feelings allows you to be precise with your actions, with your focus, with your energy.
Yep. And if you want one thing to apply immediately, right now, maybe the most actionable advice is to make emotional check-ins a regular habit.
Okay, simple check-ins.
Super simple. Maybe pause 3 times today, morning, noon, evening, and just ask yourself 2 quick diagnostic questions. 1, is this feeling I'm having right now necessary? And 2, is it helpful?
Necessary and helpful.
If the answer to either of those is no, then recognize it for what it is, clutter, and just consciously let it pass by. Don't engage.
That's a great practical way to start installing that filter. Okay, and to leave you with a final thought, something building on this deep dive. Maybe challenge yourself to really consider how much of your current emotional fatigue, that heavy, dragging feeling you might have, how much of it is actually tied to necessary, deliberate engagement with your life versus how much is just unnecessary automatic reactivity. What if just one deliberate act of emotional curation tomorrow could start to redefine your entire sense of daily purpose? Something to think about.